Hey everyone, and welcome to your next Yoga Foundations video. This one will cover all 3 warrior poses, and hopefully we'll do that in 15 minutes or less. Some of the benefits that we get from our warrior poses as we work into them are we're stretching into the legs, into the hips, into the chest, the shoulders. You're building strength into the legs, through the calves, the thighs, and the ankles. You're also building into your balance, maybe fighting fatigue, and also improving your posture. So a lot of benefits as we work into these poses. And I'll start working through each pose. We'll start from the ground up and take some modifications along the way, and I'll give you examples of different options to try for every warrior pose. So starting in our warrior one, we'll talk about stance. So in our stance, usually we struggle to find how far apart our feet should be in our warrior one. In warrior one, a lot of times you hear 3 to 4 feet apart. I'm not a very good judge of distance. And also, I've heard to have the wrists over the ankles. Well, and when your arms are extended. And when I do that, I really cannot tell if my wrists are over my ankles or not. But I can feel what's happening in my lower body. So when I take a stance in warrior one, so the right toes are facing the front of the mat, I'm bending into that right knee, my left toes are turned out. We'll get into turn out a little bit later, but right now we're just talking about how deep we want to go. Really, how high or how low you go is up to you. If your stance is too short, then we're not really working much here. It feels really easy. And if I want to take it easy in my practice, maybe that's where I'll be at today. If my legs are really just screaming at me that we just can't take anymore. But if we want to take a challenge and be where we are to continue to work the muscles and build strength, we want to extend that stride out just to where we can feel a stretch within the hips and also feel those legs start to work. If the stance is too long, we're working, but now we're working and we're not really in control. So the back leg actually starts to feel weaker. I'm shaking too much back here and actually could feel a little prone to injury because I just don't have the muscle support by having this extra long stance. So bring it in, find it to that happy medium. It won't be the perfect 3 to 4 feet, but we do need to feel it out and see where we need to be. That's where we're at for stance. Now, as far as feet, we'll start with the back leg. The back leg here, I'm talking about my left side. We do turn the toes out in our warrior one position. And a lot of times you'll hear the cue to turn your toes to a 45-degree angle. So if I step back into a high lunge, lower my heel and turn the toes out 45 degree, and as I sink down into my warrior one, all I feel is a lot of pressure on the knee and a lot of torque. So I actually need to turn my toes out for my body almost at 90 degrees facing the left side of the mat. So if you have more hypermobility in your joints, you may need more turnout. So just please adjust and feel how it feels in your knee and in your back leg and adjust your toes accordingly so that your knee tracks kind of where the toes are going and they're not fighting in opposition with each other. Now, with the back leg in your warrior one, you should be pressing into the outside edge of that back foot, feeling the engagement so that we're energizing through the back leg and have as much energy in the back leg as we do in the front to provide ourselves some support. The back thigh is engaged. Now coming up into the front leg, we'll take a look at our position there. The right foot is grounding down into the earth. And the right knee is tracking just over the ankle. So it should be perpendicular to the earth. And you should just barely see the left or the right toes, the second and the third toes. I'm going to straighten my leg for a second. Lowering down, The thigh should be almost parallel with the mat. It can be hard to have it perfectly parallel, but just come down to where you feel your limits and you feel the muscles start to actively engage. As we work our way up into the hips, again, you may hear in Warrior One that the hips should be squared towards the front of the mat. As you lower into your Warrior One, you'll find, well, that's just not possible. And it's really not possible for, I'd say, almost any body type. In Warrior One, you will have the left hip slightly open, but we're turning the torso so that it's facing the front. So as we face the front, we have those two opposing actions with the torso turning towards the front and then the external rotators of the hip kicking in as they also start to engage just into the point that you face the front. Moving up, we'll check into with our chest, with our torso, and the ribs will be drawn in. The tailbone is slightly tucked. Coming up through the chest and the arms. Our chest is open. The arms can come alongside the ears. Shoulders are down the back. As we externally rotate those upper arms to help the shoulders spread wide and keep them away from the ears. The fingertips engage and reach for the sky as we energize through the arms. So, if you're in Warrior One and you just are not having that back foot turned out, your knee just cannot take it, it's perfectly fine to lift that back heel and instead come into a high lunge in replacement for the Warrior One. Your arms in Warrior One do have a couple options as well. Your arms can stay at heart center. They can come to the traditional position of alongside the ears. That can be a little bit stressful on the neck. So instead of that, you could also take a halfway point and maybe have the arms out to a V in front of you, or maybe even in line with the shoulders, just to take any tension out of the neck. If you feel unstable in your Warrior One position, instead of having the heels or the front heel in line with the back arch, you may want to take more of a wider stance and take the right leg out maybe to about hip distance apart. And you'll feel that you have a lot more stability with a wider base. Warrior Two and Warrior One are very closely related, and you'll find a lot of similarities as you set up in the posture. First, again, we'll start discussing the stance. The stance between the Warrior Two and Warrior One, pretty close, although you may want to deepen your stance for Warrior Two. And the reason for that is we have more openness in the hips as we open the torso in Warrior Two. So when you start in your Warrior, maybe you're here in Warrior One, but as you open up to Warrior Two, you may want to take that back foot out about 2 to 3 inches just to give your hips a little bit more room to sink down. And again, to feel that activation in the lower body. If you're not feeling enough, you need to come a little bit lower. If you're feeling too much and you're feeling unstable, bring the back foot in and come a little bit higher. The back leg in Warrior Two, starting with the foot. Again, the turnout is about the same as in Warrior One. I need to have my back foot turned out almost 90 degrees to the mat to make sure that my knee is feeling comfortable and not have too much torque on the knee. Pushing into the outer right edge of the right foot here. As you see, I reverse sides. Now I am on my Warrior on the left side. The back right foot is pushing into the mat, staying active into that back right leg and also in through the back thigh. Then we'll come up into the front foot. And the front foot is just the same as you were in Warrior One. So this leg could stay in the exact same position as you move from Warrior One to Warrior Two. The left knee is stacking over the left ankle. The toes are facing the front of the mat. and we're engaged into the thigh. It's almost parallel with the earth. As we move up, now we're looking at the hips. The hips in Warrior 2 are open. From Warrior 1, the torso is facing the front, and then the hips are slightly open because we can't bring them fully to face the front. In Warrior 2, as we open up, the hips open up even more. As we travel up, we have other similarities where the tailbone is slightly tucked, the ribs are drawing in. As we move up through the chest, though, now the chest and the arms are open as we extend the fingertips out from the front to the back. And then the head is perfectly in line with the neck and the shoulders as the spine creates a straight line from the head all the way down. And traditionally, the gaze goes out and looks out towards the left fingertips. Next, we'll take a look at Warrior 3. And Warrior 3 is quite different from Warriors 1 and 2. You'll find it's more of a balance challenge and also a work in opposition. So again, we'll start with our stance. Here, of course, this is a balancing pose. So generally, you are stepping into it, either from a lunge or maybe from Warrior 2 or from Warrior 1. And you're stepping into, we'll do this on the right side, pressing into the right foot, grounding into that right leg, and we'll just start here with just picking up the left foot off of the earth. So now you have your balance, you have your stance, you feel the energy going through that right leg, and you feel pretty good in your balance, just holding the torso at about a 45-degree angle or so. Now we'll start to lean and tip over into our Warrior 3. As I talk, to make it a little easier, I'm going to grab my blocks for my Warrior 3 prep pose. And we'll start to talk about the back foot and the back leg. So the back foot should be parallel, or the back leg should be parallel to the floor, keeping the pelvis neutral and even. The foot itself on the back leg can be flexed or it can be pointed, and that depends on your ankle, whichever feels best for you. I like a flexed foot because for me it helps me to engage that back leg and to really press through the back foot to keep the hips level. Now moving into the front leg or your balancing leg, you're spreading out through all 5 toes of that right foot, pressing to all 4 corners, actively engaging that right leg as we draw the right kneecap up, but we avoid locking the knee. So the knee is maybe just a micro bend in the knee. Working your way up into the hips, the outside of the right hip is drawing in towards the midline to provide yourself with some stability, and the hips should be even. So nice and even across, and we shouldn't be opening. If you feel that your torso is shifting and starting to open, it probably means that your hips are not even. So hips are even as you move up through the chest and through the torso. The torso should be parallel with the earth and drawing the navel in to provide your core some strength and stability. The chest is lifted, and now if you're in your full warrior pose, the hands can be at heart center or arms extended alongside the ears, which is an extra balance challenge.